think it's a great program. I think veterans should get those services by all means, but I don't think it should be limited to that. But it is an example of how socialized medicine does exist in the United States, and it does work really well. Hey y'all, welcome to the Hickson Diaries, where we talk about my life as an American living here in the UK. So today we're diving into something that has seriously shocked me since moving here to the UK from the United States. I've been here about 2.5 years, and I still need to check myself on this one. Healthcare. I know it's one of those big cultural differences that everybody talks about, and they're always putting out, their videos about their experiences, especially if they're from the United States where they don't have universal healthcare. But y'all, experiencing it firsthand, it just hits so differently. And I really cannot let it go. I have to have a conversation about it. So in the United States, for those of you who might not be familiar, going to the doctor feels like preparing for battle. There is no universal health care. You need insurance, usually a credit card, and some kind of good thoughts or prayer if that's what you're into. I used to stress out so much about getting sick because it could literally bankrupt you. If you have a serious injury, you have a serious illness, you have to pay for most of it out of pocket. Even though you have insurance, you have to pay for everything. You don't get anything for free really in the US at all. So like you might have $1,000 deductible, which is basically you have to pay $1,000 out of your pocket before the insurance even kicks in. Then you have to pay a $50 copay to see the doctor. Then they send you a bill a month later with numbers on it that you can't even recognize for tests that you don't even realize you had. Don't get me started on ER visits, which is A&E here in the UK. I remember taking my daughter to the hospital when she fell at a school trip and she cut open her knee and she needed stitches. No overnight stay, nothing fancy, just 12 stitches. We got a bill for $1,000 afterwards. Here in the UK, you call your GP, you make an appointment, then you go to your appointment, you talk about whatever's going on, you get your pills or you get treatment, what the next step is, and you ever go about your day. There's no copay, there's no bill, there's no weird code that you have to, try to figure out in order to understand what you're being charged for and which paperwork goes with which referral. None of that happens here in the UK. It's called the NHS, the National Health Service. It's imperfect and it has its issues. However, the peace of mind that comes with having a national health service is absolutely unmatched. I don't have to worry about choosing between prescription or groceries. I don't have to have a savings account dedicated to unexpected medical expenses that may happen down the road, even though I'm paying a third of, or in some cases, a half of my paycheck for insurance. My kid gets sick, I can take her to the doctor. My partner needs a checkup or is having an issue. They go to the doctor, they get a checkup, they see what's going on, no stress. They even have private options here in the UK. So for those people who have the means and are unhappy with the NHS and all of its faults, have the option of going to a doctor that might get them a quicker appointment or get them something extra that they would have to wait for on the NHS system. But here's the thing, it's still cheaper than what the American insurance covers in America because they have to compete with the costs of the National Health Service. In the US, my partner was literally paying $600 per paycheck for our entire family to have benefits. That's not even accounting what it did or did not cover. It didn't count any of the deductible, as I mentioned, the copay, or any of the extra bills after the fact. Over here in the UK, I pay nothing out of pocket for GP visits. Prescriptions are capped and they are minimal. So you're not getting hit for like a $200 bill when you go and try to pick up your medication from the pharmacy. Now, I do have to pay taxes out of my wages, obviously, into the NHS. And I also, for me, because I am a temporary resident still here, I have a surplus that I have to pay every time I renew my visa into the NHS so that I can partake into the system. But if you were born here in the UK or you're a citizen of the UK, just comes out of your wages like it would normally, and then you just go about your day. It's an amazing thing. Now, don't get me wrong. As I mentioned earlier, the NHS is far from perfect. Some people do have to wait longer for certain appointments, for specialists, for surgeries that might not be emergency or urgent. But for everyday stuff, it works. And let me tell you something. I've known some people that had long-term illnesses. I've known people that had illnesses that they eventually succumbed to and died here in the UK. I've also known people that had emergency illnesses like heart attacks. None of them had to pay anything. They didn't have to pay for the hospital visits. They didn't have to pay for their medical care after the fact. They didn't have to pay for their hospice or their home health care. They didn't have to pay for any of their doctor's visits. They didn't have to pay for any of their tests or any of their treatment. It works. Socialized medicine works. It works very well. And the wildest part for me is there are social medicine programs in the US that work extremely well. When I lived in the United States, my father, who is a veteran, was diagnosed with cancer. All of his treatments were paid for through the Veterans Association. All of his tests, his hospice, all that stuff, just like I mentioned that you get here in the UK, just for being in the UK. He had to be a veteran in order to get all of those services. I think it's a great program. I think veterans should get those services by all means, but I don't think it should be limited to that. But it is an example of how socialized medicine does exist in the United States, and it does work. Of course, that whole system has its problems as well, just like the NHS does. But overall, the concept of it actually works. In the UK, healthcare is about healthcare, not about profit. That shift in mindset is probably the most refreshing thing that I've ever experienced in this journey. It's an absolute dream to not have to worry about getting sick. It's the biggest weight off of my shoulders, knowing that as I get older, I'm going to have some kind of treatment that I'm going to need. And it feels amazing to not have to worry about whether or not my insurance is up to date, or whether my insurance card is in my pocket, or which insurance I have, and will the ambulance be covered, or will that hospital actually take that insurance, or will I have to be transported to another hospital? To not have to worry about opening my mailbox after the treatment, that I'm going to get bombarded with medical bills and possibly have to go into bankruptcy because of it. It is a life-altering thing. And it is something that the UK is doing better than the US, hands down. I will reiterate, I know the NHS is not perfect, but I will vehemently support it and promote it forever. It has been so life-changing as far as stress and pressure for me and my family since we moved here. And I feel so privileged and lucky to be able to experience it. And I will continue also to push as hard as I can for Americans to understand it, so they can push their leaders to get this amazing service from their government. Let me know in the comments what healthcare is like for you guys, because I've only experienced these two things, and I have been told actually that the NHS, even though it's a pretty good system, there's much better systems out there. So I'd really love to learn more about it. Also, let me know if you've experienced either the United States system or the system here in the UK, and what surprised you the most, or what was your experience. I'd really love to hear some of these comments. That's what I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for visiting us. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.